I wanted to share another story. This wasn't necessarily funny, but it is a interesting turn of events, series of events that helped me to understand some principles about spirituality and about myself. I've been going to see Jacob Glass speak for a number of years. I guess the first time was probably about 6 years ago, on and off over those years, for the last year pretty consistently. But several years ago, when I was going to see him, there was something that would frequently trouble me. Before his lectures, he leads us in a meditation. And so I would get there, make sure I would get there on time and get to my seat. I had a lot of anxiety about getting there on time, and then I would get to my seat, get settled, and then he'd start the meditation, and often people who would be coming, after work or whatever would get there late. And it drove me crazy when people would seat themselves during the meditation. They'd make noise, or they'd, brush up against you. And I'm not enough of a meditation, I'm not accomplished enough in meditation to the point of being a raw novice that it doesn't take much to get me out of focus. So every time somebody would be going down the aisle or bumping into me or, excuse me, to take their seat during the meditation, I'd get so angry at them. And I'd be like, come on, you should know better than this. Come on, look, wait. If you get here late, then wait until after the meditation and then seat yourself when it's more of a casual, less focused, spiritually quiet time, right? Well, during one of these meditations, when I was all wrapped up in anger now about this person who had just, really they were there as part of their spiritual practice, and here I am like throwing daggers with from my lotus stance, like poison lotus for you. And I suddenly remembered vividly back to this memory of when I was in college, when I went on a special tour. Was part of this tour, Art and Religion in Asia, and we went to several places, one of which I spent a week in Tokyo. And I was lucky enough to spend a week in a meditation dojo, a Zazen meditation dojo, led by this guy who was like 4'8", old man. He probably was like 600 years old, I don't know. He's very Yoda-like. And you would ask him any question, and his answer to everything would be, sit. So how do you know sit? In Zazen, you sit. I have sit for 10 years before I know why I sit. But sit. So I was like, okay. This guy's his job was as a spiritual consultant for a huge Japanese company. How cool is that? I don't know how many U.S. companies have spiritual consultants, but this guy would help them figure out what is the most Zen and Buddhist path for them to take while still being a corporate entity. And in exchange, they funded this huge meditation dojo that people from all over the world would come to. And part of the agreement for staying there was that we had to meditate at least twice a day during their organized meditation times. And for me, a 20-minute meditation is like almost impossible. I can't barely sit that long. But I did my best, and I did it twice a day. One day, while staying there, I was with a friend. The two of us were staying in this place, and we were coming back and going up the stairs after visiting some, temple or something, and we were laughing and joking as we stomped up the stairs. And as soon as we got up the stairs, a couple minutes later, one of the monks came up to us and was like, hey, if you're going to stay here, you really need to be more respectful of our practices and things. We were just in the middle of a big meditation, and you were making all this noise, so you just need to be a little bit more considerate. And I was so ashamed. It just seemed like that's not the kind of person that I wanted to be, the kind of person that disrupts monks while they're meditating. And, who's just so selfish and like not taking things, anyway. So I was, and in this moment of this, 10 years later, I'm in the meditation, angry at people who disrupted my meditation, and I realized I haven't forgiven myself yet. I haven't forgiven myself for this college whimsical moment when I was insensitive to some monks, and and so I sat in that place, and I was like, one, I didn't really know any better. I was caught up in a moment. I was young. I didn't. And secondly, I learned from that experience, right? I've never done it again. And so in that moment of forgiving myself for this past action, I lost all my anger towards these people around me that were disrupting me. And it was like, boom. That's huge, There's so many lessons about everyone around you is a mirror to yourself, and it's so true. When you're angry at somebody, it's why? When you are frustrated, when you're people just are, and then you react to that. This monk wasn't mad at me, but I took all that as shame, and so I just think it's a really vivid illustration for me that I hang on to in terms of how the mind works and how forgiveness is, the conflict externally in your life is a misconcept. The conflict is not externally. The conflict is internal. You just need to shift your perspective on that situation, conflict, people, whatever. In this situation, it was my own self-hatred that I was projecting onto other people. And it was only when I forgave myself that I was given the gift of accepting and loving the people around me. The corollary to that is, if you notice when I started, I said I sometimes get angry that they should know better, right? They should know better. And through the years, I've realized that concept is absurd. If you ever are angry at somebody because they should know better, then you need to take a step back, think about what they should know, and tell them. If you tell someone and then they do something that is rude to you or crosses a line, then they're being rude and they're crossing the line. If they are just acting as they are and not aware of your brain, that is not an offense to you. That is not a rude act. That is not anything that you should judge or be angry at. That is you projecting the way you think the world should be onto them. If you ask them, during this meditation, you were kind of like, you kept walking in front of me, and it's really disruptive for me. So if it's easier, could you do the meditation by the door, or either something like that, so that it's not so disruptive for me? If I ask that of somebody, and then the next week they bump me on their way to their seat, they're being rude, and then I got to figure out another way to deal with the anger. But my point is, you should know better. It's poison, and you'll find it creeps into all your relationships, with romantic, with bosses, with employees, with people on the street. They should know better. Did you tell them? No, but they should know better. Ah, right, because they read your mind while you're sleeping? Because they lived your life and know the way you think? No. Communication, forgiveness, love.
You only live once. Enjoy the color.